In today's video, I'll be reviewing Street Gods, which is a MetaQuest 3 exclusive from developers Soul Assembly. These guys are the creators of The Last Stand, which is a pretty cool mixed reality shooter, and The Cabin, again another game I enjoyed. So these developers are clearly a talented bunch, and I recently found out they are fans of this channel. And they even offered to sponsor today's video of Street Gods. And while I can't disclose the amount of money they offered for me to do this, I am very grateful for the offer to support the channel since I'm now full-time on YouTube. But in this instance, I cannot accept the offer because Street Gods is not a game I personally enjoyed or can recommend for quite a few reasons. So in today's video, I'll quickly go over the story, the graphics, the positives, the negatives, and then my final thoughts. And if you find this video helpful, please leave a like and get subscribed. Street Gods is a physical VR action roguelike set in a fractured New York City where the 9 Norse realms have collided with the modern world, hence everything around you looks torn up and floating in some weird dimensional space. You play a girl called Val, and she has been chosen by Thor and the legendary hammer Mjolnir, in which he is trapped inside because all of the gods have now been misshapen and some have even lost their minds, with Loki now being a rock with googly eyes. As you play the very long and tedious intro of the game teaching you all your abilities, you go from level to level beating up an ever-growing amount of demons. These demons change over time though, and you even get some mid-level sort of bosses and a main boss, and as you progress through the game you'll see different seasons of New York City. In every level there's power-ups for your strength and magic, and there's also purple shards that give you new abilities. Your character has some sort of emotional issues, and these range from being lonely to, I guess, misjudged by others, and eventually Thor turns into some sort of lovable father type figure for her.
I spend so much time on my own. It's nice being with people who get me.
And I do get you, Val. And I will always have your back.
And before I forget, in between these runs there's a board, and you place pieces crafting your runs, but I'm not really sure what this added to the game apart from a break, because in all honesty it just felt the same thing over and over again. Now as I said, Street Gods is a MetaQuest 3 exclusive, and in terms of graphical presentation it's undeniably gorgeous to look at. But that's only true when there's less than 2 enemies on the screen. Everything looks shiny and super bold, and the hammer itself looks particularly stunning for a Quest game. The streets are littered with bins, boxes, cars and trucks, which can all be smashed and eventually blow up with successive hits from the hammer. And overall, it is pleasant to look at. That is until you actually start playing it, because Street Gods uses dynamic resolution, at least I think it does, to cope with its very nice graphics. But this doesn't really help the frame rate during the action, because the frame rate is frankly all over the place, making it pretty disappointing to play, and therefore makes the lovely graphics a bit of a double-edged sword. Sure, it looks good, but it plays like crap most of the time. One thing I noticed was the mention of weapon weight in the advertisement for Street Gods, so I expected something pretty cool, say in the same vein of Until You Fall, but that's definitely not the case here, and you can easily just flower your arm back and forth or up and down during combat, and since now it looks like I'm already hitting the negatives, I'll continue. The combat, which is the main focus of the game and what you'll be doing most of the time, is unbelievably boring. After 2 hours I could barely keep playing regardless of how many different abilities I unlocked, and maybe as the game goes on it might get better, but after defeating the first boss, and I have to say this fight was pretty abysmal in comparison, especially to what I saw in the trailers, the only thing the game had beaten is my ability to want to keep playing. The first 2 hours are pretty painful. Then there's the procedurally generated levels that don't always load correctly, leaving you in permanent black space, or levels that you can't actually get through due to them being simply impossible to navigate, or with gaps you cannot dash across. Now and again you'll come across some godlike crows, and on these levels you have to look for godlike insignias, and these act as keys, and once you find 4 of these, that means you're about to hit a boss. Now I'm not sure how they got such great footage for their trailer, unless there is a PC build out there, because this game plays nothing like the gameplay that they have shown up to this point. And it's definitely pushing the Quest to its limits, because it sucked the life out of my Quest pretty much in just over an hour, but luckily for me I've got my Bobo VR head strap and the batteries, otherwise this video simply wouldn't have happened today. I feel really bad for saying all this, because on paper this game actually sounds good and the trailers look good, but the combat is insanely repetitive. The levels are also repetitive and the performance is pretty bad, and the procedurally generated levels feel uninspired and they just don't work properly. And then there's the back and forth between your character and Thor, which is very well voice acted, but it is a bit cringe. Street Gods really tries to get you emotionally involved in the story, but when Thor soon went from a fiery god who wants to kill everyone into some sort of emotional sponge who is full of sympathy and even sounds like he's creepily falling in love with her, even though he only knew her for a couple of hours. All of it just didn't seem to sit right, and I can't get on board with it. I don't want to ruin the story, but your character also pulls a mega dick move just so there's another excuse for you to keep playing. And I know some people will like the damaged redemption person story that this game offers. I am a damaged person with a sad, broken family upbringing filled with crazy moments, abuse, drug addiction and depression. So I'm not immune to these stories in these sorts of games, but much like the Midnight Walk, the emotional story just didn't bond with me, and nor did the emotional connection between the characters themselves, and that then leaves only the gameplay for me to critique. And with everything I've said so far, that's the reason I can't give it a buy recommendation. If they lock down performance for the combat, I would increase my overall summary to a wait for a sale, but until then, it gets an avoid from me. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, especially knowing the developer wanted to help me pay the bills and they like this channel, but obviously I have to tell my audience my truth. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next one.